Hello, welcome to Real Estate Daily Magazine. And I have with me Michael Fischer. And just so everyone knows, Michael is probably known nationwide as the leading VA loan expert nationwide. He coaches and trains mortgage loan officers across the country on VA loans. He's probably the most well-respected VA loan expert that is in the industry. So I want to get that right out up front so that people understand that when we're talking here, Michael, you know what you're talking about. Also, I want to make sure everybody understands Michael works for Success Mortgage Partners, and he helps all of the loan officers at Success Mortgage Partners with their VA loans. So if anyone at Success Mortgage Partners is doing a VA loan, if they're not sure about something or they have a question, they get to work directly with the nation's leading VA expert to make sure it's done. So want to let that be known. And before we get started, one last thing is if you're a real estate agent or a would-be VA home buyer, and if you want to get connected to a loan officer at Success Mortgage Partners so that you're making sure you're working directly with the leading expert on VA loans in the nation, there's a form down below. You just fill it out, let us know. We'll connect you. We don't sell your name or anything like that to anybody. We'll personally connect you to a Success Mortgage Partners loan officer in your area so that you can work directly with that person who is directly connected to Michael. So now that I got all that out of the way, Michael, I just want to make sure that's up front so people understand what's going on. The first thing we're going to go over on VA loans, Michael, is how do I know if I qualify for a VA loan? How do I know if I'm eligible? What makes me eligible for a VA home loan?
Well, Frank, that was such a fantastic intro. I don't know if I could have scripted that myself, no matter how much AI or how many writers I hired. Holy cow. I always do say, though, who you work with matters in the VA space, and not all loan officers are the same when it comes to the lending side. And we see stats all over the place. I'm not a huge fan of public stats, but many times when I'm reading stats, I see the average loan officer only does like somewhere around 1 or 2 VA loans a year.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of a big deal when you're a veteran. You want somebody who's doing a little bit more than 1 or 2 loans a year. I can't stress that enough because I hear stories where real estate agents and lenders are struggling. Usually when we do the math and we track it back, it's somebody inexperienced that just wasn't in the right spot to help.
So that would go, like you said, if you're a veteran, you want to get a home loan, it does matter who you work with. And if you're a real estate agent too, and you've got a VA home buyer, you want to make sure they're connected to a loan officer who knows what they're doing, or at least is connected to a resource such as you, to make sure that things get done correctly. So right on, man, let's go for it. How do I know?
Let's go for it. So sometimes people interchange words in the lending space, and it gets really confusing. They'll say like, am I qualified? Am I pre-approved? Am I entitled? And the VA has their own set of words too. So let's break it down a little bit. A veteran, number one, is eligible for a VA loan based on their time in service, their character service, and the completion of the duty that they were assigned to. So without pulling out like charts and graphs and all that kind of stuff, let's just say that we have a veteran who served all the time they were supposed to serve. If they were active duty, they did at least 2 years, and they got out and they got a honorable discharge. We would go into our lending systems called WebLGY, and we would help them pull up a certificate of eligibility. So if you're a veteran listening to this call, or if you're a real estate agent, if you're working with somebody who is using the VA home loan product, that veteran has to have a certificate of eligibility. That's the golden ticket, we like to call it, to getting a VA loan. If they don't have that document, that piece of paper, they can't close on a VA loan. So first and foremost, the eligibility for the veteran is confirmed through the VA with the certificate of eligibility, and that eligibility is based on their time of service. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be just a veteran. It could be somebody who is also active duty, currently serving. If they've served at least 90 days and they're currently, serving honorably, we can go in and verify. We get something called a statement of service. They can actually buy while they're serving as long as they've been active for at least 90 days. I mean, you see a lot of that all over the country, right, Frank? Veterans buying near the bases or the duty stations that they're assigned to. So that's piece number one. They'll be eligible based on their time in service as confirmed by the VA with their certificate of eligibility. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're guaranteed a home loan. That's where we enter the money space, the lending space. Now, in our world, sometimes veterans think they're going to get money from the VA, and that's not the case. The VA doesn't necessarily lend money. The VA guarantees lenders, and what they really guarantee them from or for is they're kind of guaranteeing that if for some reason something goes wrong and that house forecloses, the VA will try to help make the lender whole so that the whole system can stay liquid, if you will. So it's really a VA guarantee. And the VA gives us, rules and regulations and kind of talks about what we can do and maybe what even we can't do. So when a veteran goes to a lender, the lender is actually endorsed by the VA to kind of follow the rules, but that lender is going to lend their own money and they're going to go through their own credit and income analysis. So just like other mortgage products, the veteran would need to talk to a loan officer. They would need to have their credit pulled. They're going to need to provide some income documentation. They're going to have to talk a little bit about assets, cash, how much money they have to work with. And we go through that part of the loan process to make sure that they qualify. So that, they qualify based on the characteristics of their income, assets, credit, the same kind of things that other folks would do on other loan products. Now, the cool thing about VA is that if a veteran has earned that benefit, the VA allows them to go all the way up to a property's purchase price, 100% of the purchase price financing. So eligible veterans and active duty service members don't necessarily have to save as much. They don't need to put a 20% down payment. So that's a huge benefit. So step one, get that certificate of eligibility. Step two, go through the steps of qualifying. Have somebody look at your credit, your income, and your assets. And then step three, you really want to understand how much cash you would need, what the payments might look like, what factors could affect the rates, how the markets move up and down a little bit. And then you're going to want to try to find a partner that specializes and really understands how to get VA offers accepted, right, Frank?
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask you this. So that was a great, and there's a lot of information there. Okay, so you mentioned with getting that certificate of eligibility, I can be active duty as long as I've been in service for 90 days and I'm good. I'm a good guy, right? If I served at least 2 years, right, as in the military, and I was discharged properly with an honorable discharge, I served my proper time, all that, typically you would be eligible. Of course, you're going to run it through the computer. A couple quick questions for you. What about reserves? There's a thing. Yeah. What about reserves?
Reserves and National Guard's a little bit different. Reserves and National Guard, they actually have to have 6 years as opposed to 2 years. And in addition to the 6 years, they have to have credited. They call it a point system. They have to have done their weekends and their drills and kind of followed everything that they were prescribed to do to get enough points. They actually get 15 points for being in that duty station in the Guard or Reserve, and then they get 1 point for the active drill weekends that they end up doing. So the loan officers kind of on our end will take a look at their point statements and we'll try to add them up, and then we work with the VA itself. They call it the VA Regional Loan Center to try to make sure that they have enough points to be eligible. Now, one piece that I sometimes see misunderstood in the veteran space and the lending space is oftentimes loan officers have done a little bit of training and they'll kind of coach the veteran that, they need 6 years. But what they forget is that if that veteran is in the reserves or National Guard, they may have been called to active duty. And so if they were called to active duty, they could actually qualify under the active duty rules, like we said a few minutes ago, 90 days. So in many cases, we'll find folks who are in the reserve that may not have been in the full 6 years, but have been sent overseas, or in some cases sent for COVID relief, or sent to the nation's capital or something like that. As long as they have a 90-day period of activation, they may still be eligible as well. Again, it goes back to working with somebody who does a fair amount of VA loans, that communicates with the VA quite a bit, can really help that vet walk through and determine whether they can get that certificate of eligibility or not. So
yeah.
Does that make sense, Frank?
Yeah, that's great. And thank goodness Success Mortgage Partners is a top 100 VA lender, and in big part because we've got you on the team. That's really, really cool. They've got you on the team. How about this? One more question. I think we've kind of pretty much crystallized basically who's eligible, right? And what the difference between being eligible and qualifying is. There's big differences between those two things. But the other question is what branches like, does the Coast Guard count?
Coast Guard? Yep. Space Force? Yep.
Really? Space Force
Army,
too?
Marines? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force. Miss anybody? Or is that about it?
A few folks that are in The VA medical system, that one's a little bit trickier because I don't want to throw that out there publicly. Usually, if they're in that particular category, they'll know it's essentially a government assignment. But yeah, you go through the main branches of the military, and those folks are all going to be eligible. You got to be a little bit careful as to whether it was active duty service or Guard or Reserve service.
Okay. And
sometimes too, loan professionals and real estate agents don't quite understand that some of these, for example, Guard units, they're not necessarily national units. They're state units. So you've got like the Michigan National Guard or the Arkansas National Guard. So they may not be activated overseas. They may be getting called to stateside duty. And that piece is a little different. It used to be that when they were called to stateside duty, they wouldn't be eligible. They'd still have to serve the 6 years. But that changed a few years ago, and I see a lot of lending professionals that didn't quite catch that. You see a lot of folks who still didn't get the message that they could be a stateside National Guard unit, and if they got called for hurricane relief, very, very common. You see a lot of Guard members that got called up for hurricane relief. If they got called for 90 days, they are now eligible, even if they haven't served that 6 years.
This is good information. This is why it's good to talk to the expert, Michael. So good stuff. Good to know. So I think we can leave it at that for now. I really appreciate you being here in Real Estate Daily Magazine and heading up this new podcast all about VA home loans. I think it's going to be very, very beneficial to.
I got one last thing to say, and it's
give
more
it to
of a
us.
reminder.
Let's go.
Reminder.
Yeah.
So if you're a real estate agent or if you're a veteran, the veteran needs to have that certificate of eligibility. If your lender can't seem to find it, can't seem to get it to you, can't seem to give you instructions as to how to get it, that's probably a little more than a yellow flag. That's a red flag that lender may not have the experience that you need to get you all the way through to the closing table. So make sure you get that certificate of eligibility right away. Very important to know. And work with somebody that can explain to you how it works, how much home you could potentially purchase, and how you can use that VA benefit over and over again to buy multiple houses.
There you go. And that person would be a loan officer over at Success Mortgage Partners, who's connected to the man himself, Michael Fischer, the leading VA expert through the entire country. So with that, guys, once again, if you've got questions, if you need help, if you want to be connected, there's a form down below that you can fill out. We don't sell your name or anything like that. You fill out the form, we're literally going to give you a call and say, well, what's going on? How do you need help? And then we're going to connect you to the right person, get you the answers that you need. So just fill out that form down below. Michael Fischer, thanks so much. We'll be back again and again and again going forward, because there's a lot to dissect when it comes to VA home loans, isn't there?
Yes, Frank, but it's not hard if you're a person that spends all day, every day doing it.
Right.
So find somebody that is in that space and that loves it and that does it all day, every day, and it'll seem easy to you too.
Great stuff. Thank you, Michael Fischer, everybody. All right, thanks for joining us here at Real Estate Daily Magazine, and we'll catch up with you guys here next time. Adios.
Thanks, Frank.